Hey, Uniquely Cindy here. I've got a unique experience for us today. I am at Fort Federica on St. Simon's Island, Georgia. And I came out here to do the colonial burial grounds. And while I was out here, the park ranger was telling me they have discovered some new plots with graves on it. And she was giving me the history behind it. And so I want to share it with you. Here you see this beautiful obelisk. I'm backing up here so y'all can see all of it. Okay, and written on here is in love and memory of my father and aunt, Thomas Abbott, Cecilia Abbott, erected by Robert Abbott, and you see the name Abbott there on the bottom. Excuse me. Now, Mr. Abbott, the one that erected this monument, this is some of his family ancestors buried here in this little lot of land I'm fixing to show you. But he was an African American who went on to Chicago in later years and started the Defender, which is a newspaper there in Chicago. And this is his ancestors buried on this land. This is an African American plot. And I'm going to take you over here and let you see it. The ranger was telling me that traditionally in your African American burial plots, your slave plots and all, that they would have the graves and then they would cover them with the oyster shells. And so here we have 3 graves that they have uncovered. There are probably more under here. They just don't, have not been able to identify them yet. And here we have the placard for the African American burial ground. You'll see the information there, and you'll see the name. It says, most enslaved people were brought to coastal Georgia from Central and Western Africa. Descendants are known as the Gullah Geechee today. They brought their cultural customs and identities, including those surrounding burial traditions, to the New World and adapted them to their newer Christian cultural customs and religions. Central and West Africa had a wide range of complex, traditional, and indigenous African religious and spiritual belief systems, including Islam. The funeral and burial practices of the Gullah Geechee are some of the clearest examples of the West African traditions they retained and preserved. Graves are traditionally marked in several ways. Sticks, stones, uniquely carved wooden grave markers, and plants such as cedars or yuccas are sometimes used. Offerings such as glass, china, and other household objects adorn the graves to represent earthly life. At times, conches and oyster shells have been used to mark or even outline the grave sites, and this practice has continued into the 21st century. The use of seashells was not unique to Gullah Geechee culture and has been described as a connection to the water that transported them and would hopefully take them back to Africa after death. Following the Revolutionary War, 14 plantations were established on St. Simon's Island, including the land that is now Fort Federica National Monument. Owners used enslaved people to work the land. This land in front of you is a marginalized spot, unsuitable for farming or other commercial pursuits, so it was used as a burial site for the enslaved. This is a typical use of such land. These burials were discovered in the summer of 2019. Research is ongoing to discover more details about the lives and individuals I found here. Individuals identified in these burial grounds are Harriet, which is an infant, Tom Abbott, Mary Fenwick Abbott, and Cecilia Abbott, child of Beck Fenwick, child of Polly Jackson, Myler Macmillan, child of Harriet Thomas. Markers A and B represents placeholders for future burials. So the Abbott family ancestors, the gentleman that erected the monument here, this is his ancestors. And the ranger was telling me that the family still comes back here and pays homage to their ancestors. I thought this was very nice, very beautiful. The obelisk monument is gorgeous, and it's 2019. It's a fairly new discovery here in Fort Federica. And we'll take you down here and show you this other one. The last time I was here, This was not here. Well, it was here, but it hadn't been laid out like it is now. And here is 1, 2, 3, there's 6 graves right here. Beautiful. Fort Federica is a beautiful national park. If you get the chance, come to St. Simon's Island, Georgia, please stop by and see it. I don't have time to go over the whole park today, but I'm going to show you the graves. I'll be back here in March, and I'm going to go over Christ Church and Fort Federica in more detail. I'm going to take you now over to the colonial burial ground. Now, Fort Federica was founded in 1736. It was a British encampment. The ruins of the fort is down at the other end of the compound, and it's just a beautiful sight. Beautiful, native to Georgia in the south is these beautiful old oak trees. I love the moss hanging off of them. Now I'm going to take you over here and show you. You'll see straight in front of me here. Let me see if I can zoom in on it. This tree right here. This is the oldest tree out here in Fort Federica. It's been documented. It predates the fort of 1736. So beautiful. It is on the historic roster as being one of the oldest trees, or the oldest tree in Fort Federica, the ranger was telling me. Now we're going to walk over. You can look at some of the beautiful scenery here as we go to the colonial burial ground. Now the colonial burial ground, they are guesstimating the date, but it dates back to the early 1700s. Fort started in 1736, so it could have been any time from 1736 while the fort was active. The ranger was telling me that, of course, they don't have the documentations for it at this time, but archaeology is still ongoing. Some of the American Indian tribes that was here, more enslaved people that are here, they are looking into finding more of the burial sites. They have a group that's coming out here in a little bit, and they're going to be playing some of the colonial games and stuff like that. So they're getting ready for that. You'll see across the way here, they got a thatch tent set up. And this would be the little garden areas and animal areas. And I got a little doggy over there barking at me. Now, that end, which is the one that we'll come back to, that end of the park is where people lived and they guarded the waterfront. What's left of the fort is down on that end also. The burial grounds were outside of the fort for sanitation reasons and all, so you didn't have people buried inside the encampment of the fort. Just a little bit more. Now I did go in and talk to the rangers because I had seen on the internet they were naming, somebody had put together the names of some people that were buried in the colonial part of the cemetery. And I asked them about it because I grew up here and I never knew. I was always told that we don't know who was buried here. The records was lost. Fort Federica caught on fire mid to late 1700s, I believe it was, and a lot of documentation was lost. And the rangers told me they do not know who is buried here, and so it's just a guesstimation as to who was buried here. They know who all lived here. They've got a listing of the people that lived in this area, but they don't know who was actually buried out here in these tombs. But they are unique tombs. She was telling me that these would be British burials. It's part of the early settlement of the forts, which be early 1700s. But here we have a chest grave. And there's nothing written on the graves. If there was, it's long gone to history now. This is a tabby, would have been a tabby tomb. Now, according to the customs of the day too, they would not have been just laid in here. The tombs surrounded the graves, and just like with the chest grave here, the tomb graves, the people were actually buried, and then these structures were built around it to protect the graves from predators. The water table, she was telling me here, is only 6 feet, so they would bury the bodies outside of the fort so that, for sanitation reasons, the water and all inside the fort would maintain its purity. This one has always intrigued me. As you can see, it is a brick alcove. The bodies would have been inside, buried underground, but the protection is there. I imagine this would have been probably one of the upper crust families of the fort. That's me guessing, there's no documentation. And then over the brick archway is a stucco area. And then if you'll look over here on this side, they came up with brick again and was building more. And you can see the shells and all, that time has eroded some of the stucco, and the shells and all are falling down in there. Now let's see if I can get an angle. There's 2 more tombs in the back. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get them from, yeah, I can. You're not allowed to go in the burial ground to preserve the tombs. Now if you look back there, you've got 2 chest graves. And there is speculation on these as to whether or not these are chest graves that would cover the coffin or chest graves that just cover the grave. I'm leaning to just covering the graves because of the fact that if you can see it, if you look on the top there, you'll see that it's sunken down. I cannot get in there, so I can't see if that's hollow in the center there. So I'm going to say that they're chest graves where you're once again buried underground, and that's put on top of it to protect you from predators. That is not cement that you're seeing there, that is stucco. Just like you see over here in this one, stucco to protect the grave. Now when you come to Fort Federica, you will find trails and all that you're allowed to walk through. It's a beautiful nature paths. And it's a lovely place. You could come out and spend all day out here. But these are the colonial burial grounds here at Fort Federica. And I imagine there are many more people buried out here. Just time has eroded it away. I mean, we're talking 1736, 1836, 1936, and soon to be 2036. That's hard to imagine, you know, we're only 10 years away from that. So you're talking about almost 300 years. Remember, we are fixing to celebrate 250 years of becoming our own nation. And so there's a lot of history. Don't let your history go. Get out there, learn about your history, whether it's in your state or through reading and finding out things from other people. Like my videos, subscribe, hit that notification bell. I love history, so I'm going to bring as much as I can within the areas that I'm at. There you see a slab grave, so, you know, I'm sorry we can't get any closer, but I don't want the park rangers to get us. And there's no telling how many other graves. Since this was a burial ground, there's probably even more graves out here. The park ranger was telling me that there are American Indians they know buried somewhere out here, but they have not been discovered yet as far as the grave sites. And depending on the tribe, they all had different customs where they may not ever discover them. But this is Fort Federica in St. Simons Island, Georgia. There's a lot of history on this island, so if you come to the area, take a day and come over. I promise you won't get it all done in a day, but you'll enjoy the day that you're here. Hey, Uniquely Cindy here. Thanks for joining me. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Stay tuned. We will be taking more unique visits as the days go by. Thank you, and you have a wonderful day.